Hello students, topic for today's lecture is performance of a reciprocal promise. In a contract, the promisor and the promisee both undertake certain obligation towards each other. These obligations can also be in the form of a reciprocal promise or a promise in exchange of a promise. The Indian Contract Act 1872 provides for the law on reciprocal promises in section 51 to 58. Some contracts consist of a reciprocal promise or promises which are to be performed simultaneously. In such case, there is no obligation on the promisor to perform his promise until the promisee is willing to perform his reciprocal promise. Let's take an example. When you go to a shop, the shopkeeper agrees to give you the product in exchange for money. This is an example for the reciprocal promise where you promise to pay the value of the product and the shopkeeper promises to give you the goods on the receipt of the payment. If either of you is unwilling to perform your promise, then the other can treat the contract ended. Now we'll deal first caption is a sequence of promise of a reciprocal promise. It is been defined in section 52. When a contract includes a reciprocal promise, the parties might agree upon the order in which the promises are performed. If that is the case, then the order mentioned in the contract should be followed. However, if the contract does not specify any such order, then the order of the performance of the reciprocal promises is determined based on the nature of the transaction. Let's take an example in this. Peter promises to help John find a house in lieu of John's promise to pay him a commission for the same. The contract does not specifically order the performance of the promise. However, the nature of the transaction suggests that Peter should first help John get a house before he expects him to perform his promise of paying him the commission. Then, next is one party preventing the other from the performance of a promise. It has been defined under section 53. In a contract consisting of reciprocal promises, if one party prevents the other from performing duty, then the prevented party has the option of voiding the contract. Also, the prevented party can claim the compensation from the obstructing party for any loss that he might sustain due to non-performance of the contract. Then comes the reciprocal and dependent promises. It has been defined under section 53. In this case, a contract where the reciprocal promises are dependent on each other. If the promisor who is supposed to perform his promise before the other fails to perform it, then he cannot claim the performance of the reciprocal promise. He is also liable to compensate the other party for any loss that he might sustain due to non-performance of the contract. Then comes the failure to perform within the stipulated time in a time-sensitive contract. It has been defined under section 55 in this contract, where the intention of both the parties is that time is of the essence and that the promiser should perform the promise within the specified time, and the promiser fails to do so, then he is liable to pay the compensation to the promisee for any loss sustained by him due to the failure. Then comes section 56, that is impossible or the unlawful act. If two parties enter a contract where the promisor agrees to do an impossible or an unlawful act, then the contract is termed as void. The act can be impossible or unlawful at the time the contract was made, or subsequent events can make a possible act impossible. Then comes the section 57, that is reciprocal promise of legal and illegal acts. Imagine two or more people entering into a contract consisting of a reciprocal promise where they first where they first do certain things which are legal and then under other circumstances agrees to do acts which are illegal. In such case, the first set of promise is a valid contract, but the second set is said as a void contract. And the last one is alternative promise of legal or illegal acts. It is defined under section 58. It is possible to make a contract with an alternative promise if one branch of the alternative promise is legal and the other is illegal. Then only the legal branch can be enforced. Let's take an example. Peter and John enter into an agreement where Peter agrees to pay off John's outstanding loan of rupees 20 lakhs taken from Oliver. Then, if Peter cannot repay the amount then he will kill Oliver. In this case, the contract is valid for Peter's promise of repaying the loan. However, the alternative branch is illegal and hence it is termed as void. I think the concept must be clear to you. Thank you.